The storm rolled over the plains without warning, swallowing the sky in dark clouds and violent wind. Daniel Cross pulled his coat tighter as he rode hard toward the edge of his land, eyes narrowed against the dust. Something wasn't right. The cattle had been restless all morning, the horses uneasy, and years of living out here had taught him to trust that feeling. Trouble didn't announce itself. It crept in quiet and struck fast. A flash of lightning cut across the sky, followed by thunder that shook the ground beneath his horse's hooves. Then he saw it, a wagon, broken, half buried in dirt and debris near the dry creek. Daniel slowed, his grip tightening on the reins as he approached carefully. No movement, no sound except the wind howling through the cracked wood. He dismounted, boots hitting the ground hard, and stepped closer. The wagon had been wrecked, not by weather, but by force. One wheel snapped clean, deep marks in the dirt. Struggle. His jaw tightened. "Hello?" he called out, his voice cutting through the storm. No answer. He moved around the wagon, scanning, alert. And then he saw her. She was lying partially beneath a torn canvas, her body still, one arm visible, fingers curled weakly into the dirt. A cloth was wrapped tightly around her upper body, almost like someone had tried to cover something or hide it. Daniel rushed forward, dropping to one knee beside her. "Hey," he said, his voice lower now, controlled. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered slightly, barely opening. Fear hit them before recognition did. Immediate, deep. "Don't," she whispered, her voice fragile, barely carried by the wind. Daniel leaned closer. "You're hurt. I need to—" Her hand shot out weakly, gripping his sleeve with surprising urgency. "Please, don't take the cloth off," she begged, her voice trembling despite the effort it took to speak. The words stopped him cold. Not because of what she said, but how she said it. That wasn't fear of pain. That was fear of something else. Something deeper. Daniel studied her face. Pale, exhausted, terrified. "You're bleeding," he said carefully. "If I don't—" "No," she cut in, her grip tightening slightly before weakening again. "Please." Her eyes closed briefly, like she didn't have the strength to argue anymore. Daniel sat back slightly, his mind working fast. Out here, hesitation could mean death, but so could doing the wrong thing. He glanced at the cloth. It was tied tight, too tight, like it had been done in a hurry or by someone desperate. The storm raged around them, the wind picking up harder, dust stinging his face. He didn't have time. "I'm getting you out of here," he said finally. She didn't respond. Either she didn't hear him, or she had already slipped too far into exhaustion. Carefully, he lifted her, supporting her weight as gently as he could. She winced, a faint sound escaping her lips, but she didn't fight him. He carried her to his horse, securing her carefully before climbing up behind her. The ride back to the ranch was brutal. The storm hit full force, rain slamming down, wind threatening to knock them off course. Daniel kept one arm steady around her, holding her in place, his focus locked forward. She was barely conscious now, her breathing shallow, uneven. By the time they reached the ranch, night had begun to fall. He didn't waste a second. He carried her inside, laying her carefully on the bed. The fire was already lit from earlier, the warmth spreading slowly through the room. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at her. The cloth, her words. "Don't take it off." His jaw tightened. He moved quickly, grabbing water, cloth, whatever he needed. But every time his hands moved near that tightly wrapped fabric, her voice echoed in his head. "Please, don't take the cloth off." He exhaled sharply. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. This wasn't a simple injury. This wasn't just someone afraid of pain. Something had happened to her. Something bad enough that she'd rather risk dying than let him see. He stepped back for a moment, running a hand through his hair. Think, if he left it, she might not make it. If he removed it— He looked at her again. She stirred slightly, her face tightening as if caught in a memory she couldn't escape. Fear again, even in sleep. That decided it. "You're not dying because of fear," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. He moved closer again, his hands steady despite the tension building in his chest. Slowly, carefully, he reached for the edge of the cloth. His fingers paused for just a second. Then he pulled. The fabric loosened, unraveled, fell away. And the moment it did, Daniel froze. His entire body went still. His breath caught sharply in his chest. His hands began to shake. Not from uncertainty, not from hesitation, from shock. Real, deep, undeniable shock. Because what had been hidden beneath that cloth wasn't just an injury, it was something far worse. Something that made his stomach turn and his chest tighten in a way he hadn't felt in years. Something that told him, without a single word, that whoever had done this hadn't just tried to hurt her. They had tried to break her. Completely. Daniel staggered back half a step, his mind racing, anger rising fast beneath the shock. "Who did this?" he muttered, his voice low, dangerous. The storm outside roared louder, as if echoing the fury building inside him. On the bed, she stirred again, her breathing uneven, her face pale but tense, as if even unconscious, she knew the truth had been seen. Daniel looked at her again, his hands still trembling slightly, but his expression changing now. The shock was still there, but something else was rising with it, something stronger. Resolve. Whoever had done this, they weren't done, not yet, and neither was he. The storm outside howled against the walls of the ranch house, rattling the windows like a warning that hadn't finished speaking yet. Daniel stood there for a moment longer, his chest rising and falling hard, his hands still trembling from what he had just seen. But the shock didn't last. It couldn't. Not out here. Not when someone's life was hanging by a thread. He forced himself to move. Fast, controlled, focused. He grabbed clean cloth, water, anything he needed, pushing past the anger clawing at his chest. "Stay with me," he muttered, his voice rough but steady as he worked. She didn't respond, but her breathing shifted slightly, like some part of her was still fighting to hold on. Carefully, he began to tend to her injuries, his movements precise, his jaw locked tight. Every mark, every sign of what she had been through, fueled something deeper in him. Not just anger, something colder, more dangerous. When he was done, he stepped back slightly, wiping his hands, his mind already moving ahead. Whoever had done this wasn't far, couldn't be. The wagon hadn't been there long. The storm had only just started. They were close, too close. He looked down at her again. She was quieter now, her breathing more even, though her face still carried the tension of someone who hadn't escaped. Not fully. "You're safe here," he said, even if she couldn't hear him. "No one's touching you again." The words weren't just comfort, they were a promise. The night stretched long. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat near the bed, rifle resting within reach, eyes fixed on the door, on the windows, on every shadow that moved with the flicker of the firelight. Hours passed. The storm began to fade, the thunder rolling farther away, the rain softening into a distant memory. And just before dawn, she woke. It was subtle at first, a shift, a breath, a slight tightening of her fingers against the blanket. Then her eyes opened, wide, alert. Fear hit instantly. She tried to sit up, but pain stopped her, a sharp breath escaping her lips. "Easy," Daniel said quickly, stepping closer but not too close. "You're safe." Her eyes snapped to him, searching, panicked. Then her hands moved, instinctively, grabbing at the cloth that had been removed. Realization hit her. Her breathing quickened. You took it off," she whispered. Not a question, a statement. Daniel didn't lie. "I had to," he said. Her eyes filled with something sharp. Not just fear, not just anger, something deeper. I told you not to, she said, her voice shaking. He nodded once. I know. She looked away, her jaw tightening, as if bracing herself for something worse than pain, for judgment, for disgust, for rejection. It never came. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't heavy in the way she expected. Finally, she spoke again, quieter now. Why are you still here? Daniel frowned slightly. What kind of question is that? Most men would have left, she said. Or, worse. Her voice broke slightly at the end, like the words carried more truth than she wanted to admit. Daniel's expression hardened, not at her but at the thought behind her words. I'm not most men, he said simply. She glanced at him again, uncertain, like she didn't quite believe that was possible. You saw, she said slowly. You know what they did. Yeah, he replied, his voice low. I do. A pause. Then she asked the question she had been holding back. So why help me? Daniel didn't hesitate. Because someone should have done it sooner. That answer hit differently. She didn't know what to do with it. For a moment, she just stared at him, searching his face for anything that would make sense of it. What's your name? He asked after a moment. She hesitated, then quietly, Mara. He nodded. All right, Mara. He pulled a chair closer but didn't sit yet. You strong enough to talk? She took a slow breath. Depends. On what? On whether it matters. Daniel met her gaze, steady. It matters. She studied him for a long moment. Then something shifted. Not trust, not yet, but enough to speak. They weren't just robbers, she said, her voice low. They've been taking women, selling them, moving them from town to town. Daniel's jaw tightened. How many? I don't know, she admitted, but more than me. Silence fell again, heavier this time, because now it wasn't just about her. It was bigger, worse. You remember anything? He asked. Faces, names, where they might go next? Mara nodded faintly. Some. Daniel finally sat down, leaning forward slightly, his focus locked in. Then we're not done, he said. She blinked. We? He didn't look away. Yeah, he said. We. She let out a small, disbelieving breath. You don't even know me. Don't need to, he replied. I know enough. The same words. But now they meant something else. Mara looked at him, really looked at him this time, not as a stranger, not as a man to fear, but as something she hadn't expected to find. Someone who stayed. Her voice softened, just slightly. Why? She asked again. Daniel's answer didn't change. Because no one's breaking you, he said, not after this. The fire crackled softly beside them, the first light of morning beginning to creep through the windows. Outside, the storm had passed, but something else had taken its place. Purpose. Mara leaned back slightly, her strength still limited, but her eyes clearer now. If we do this, she said slowly, there's no turning back. Daniel nodded. Wasn't planning on it. Another pause, then quietly she said, All right. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was a decision, and that was enough. Days passed as she recovered, slowly, painfully, but she did, and Daniel stayed true to every word. No pressure, no questions she didn't want to answer, just presence, just protection, just quiet, steady strength. And in that time, something else began to build. Not out of obligation, not out of fear, but out of something real. Trust. It didn't happen all at once. It came in small moments. A shared glance, a quiet understanding, the absence of fear where it had once lived. Until one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the landing gold, Mara stepped out onto the porch beside him. She stood there for a moment, looking out at the open land. Free land. Then she spoke. I'm not running anymore, she said. Daniel glanced at her. Good. She took a breath. And I'm not doing this alone either. He didn't respond right away. He didn't need to, because they both understood what that meant. She turned to him, her expression steady, no fear left in it. You didn't walk away, she said, even when I told you not to look. Daniel met her gaze. Some things need to be seen, he said quietly. She nodded. Then after a brief pause, she said, then stay. It wasn't a request, not entirely. It was a choice, the same kind he had given her from the start. And this time, she was giving it back. Daniel's expression softened, just slightly. I'm not going anywhere, he said. The sun dipped lower, the light fading into something calmer, something steady. And as they stood there, side by side, the past didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling everything. Because this time, she wasn't alone. And this time, someone stayed.